welcome to another episode of Community Connections. I am your host, Anna Orr, and this is airing on a Romeo 11. Today we are talking all things literacy. We are trying to not only address the literacy crisis right here in Minnesota, but we are also trying to further the conversation with some resources and some educational tools on how you can get involved. This is going to be an episode you won't want to miss. Thank you for joining me today on this episode of Community Connections. Can you do me a favor and just introduce yourself to our viewers and talk about your role at Anoka County Library?
Yeah, my name is Erin Straszewski, and I'm the Community Engagement Manager for Anoka County Library. And what that means really is I help the library get to know the community and the community get to know the library so that we can work together to make our community a great place to live.
Wonderful. Now today we are talking all things literacy across the state. Now I'm just going to give a little bit of information for those that may not know. Currently there is 60% of third graders are reading below reading level. That is about 85% of kids in juvenile courts are also being deemed as illiterate. So there is a large scope of kids that are not only not reading the literacy standards in our state, but are also struggling, and this is then affecting our communities at large. Can you talk to me about what was the driving force for Anoka County Libraries to get involved and start tackling this very important issue?
Well, just like you said, reading ties into so many facets of life. A lot of people think about reading as important for school and academic success, and it is. Especially once you get past third grade, students aren't learning those fundamentals of how to read anymore. They're expected to be able to read to learn all the other things. Even math, we kind of think like, oh, it's all about numbers. You don't have to know reading for math, but most of math, you do have to be able to read because it's word problems. If the problem is, there's 20 bananas at the grocery store and 30 apples and they sell 10, how many are left? You have to be able to read that to do the math. So reading is so foundational to academic success. But even beyond that, like you're saying, we see other things in life, those outcomes of being able to get a good job and being able to manage your health care and being able to learn new skills. All those things tie back to reading because that's so foundational to our society. So libraries have always been about reading, but as we started to look more recently at the numbers of just the kids who aren't learning to read, that's where it really kind of stood out and said, we need to be doing even more dedicated work in this area to make sure that kids are getting those foundational skills so that they can move on to those other things in school, but also just in life. And with COVID and how that disrupted education over the past few years, it really spotlighted that some of the issues were definitely there before COVID, but it really shined a light on even more disruption to education and really motivated us to say, okay, we're going to make some really strategic choices about helping students learn to read.
Absolutely. Now, according to the Department of Education, in Minneapolis, we have less than 1 in 3 students reading at grade level. And students who can't read by the end of third grade are 4 times more likely to drop out of high school. Those numbers are staggering.
It's heartbreaking.
Can you talk to me about what are some of the tools that Anoka County Library has been utilizing to try to close some of that gap and address this really heavy issue across not only your area, but the patrons in which you serve statewide?
Yeah, well, I know a lot of your viewers aren't necessarily in Anoka County. So I'll try to say specific things we're doing, but also things that all libraries have.
Please.
And the great thing about libraries is that they're for everyone and they're free. So I know a lot of people don't realize all the things that libraries have and that they are free to you. That's the number one thing that people tell me is wait, you have this and that, and it's all free. So libraries have always been about access to reading and information. But as our society has shifted, there's so many things that people need access to in order to really be able to participate and get the information they need. So libraries, not just Anoka County Library, but libraries across the state, anyone and everyone can get a library card for free and have access to books and movies and music, and so many online tools. It's just incredible. In the metro area, we have free homework help where a live tutor will help a student, and that was available before COVID. And we also have free job help, so you can submit your resume, you can talk to someone about interview skills, language learning tools, so whether you're trying to learn a language other than English or English is your second language, those tools are all available for free. And story time is another thing that a lot of libraries have been known for a long time, is parents and caregivers can bring their really young kids to the library and really start that love of reading early. And we sing songs and we talk and we play and we read. And really it's helping parents see doing those things every day sets your child up for success. So libraries have been in that space for a really long time. But then students start school and we kind of say, okay, that's school's job to teach kids the further skills. And that's true. We're not trying to replace what schools do, but the literacy issue, I see it really as it's a community-wide issue. It affects everything in our community, and so it really is more than just schools teaching kids to read, but libraries can play a great role in supporting families in helping their older kids choose books and if they're struggling with reading. So the past couple years, we contracted with a literacy specialist to see how we could improve in those areas. And a big thing that we started doing over the past year and a half is reading mentors. And it sets kids up with a volunteer mentor to practice once a week at the library. The library is a low stress place. We don't do any tests or grades or anything like that. And so it's not replacing what the student is learning in school, but it is another aspect of getting that support and that practice in a really low stress environment with a really supportive mentor. It's not a teacher who's, telling them what they're doing wrong or giving them grades. It's just a mentor who says reading is really fun. And so we started the Reading Bridge program. We also started building our collection around things that would help kids. We have so many books and movies and cool things, but as we've been learning, we've learned that there are certain things that we didn't necessarily have that could help kids even more. So we've added some books that have media players in the book. You check out the book and all you have to do is press the button. You don't need a separate CD player or device. You just press the button and a child can follow along in the book while they listen to the book. We have added books that are called decodable books, which are really meant for those early readers. It's not so overwhelming with all the words on the page and all the really hard words. It's at the reader's level. So we've really been working to try to beef up those areas to support families and students who are learning or struggling to read.
That makes a lot of sense. Can you share with me a bit about how before you had the literacy specialist come in, I'm sure they probably provided you guys with a consultation kind of reviewing what you guys already had in play, and then the transition during that time after they started implementing some of their ideas. What was some of the changes you started to encounter with people that were coming to the library?
We are still in the learning process for sure, but you're right. It's been a transition as we learn how kids learn to read and what support they need to help our staff be able to better recommend books to parents, to think about what that looks like. Decodable books, Unfortunately, there's not a lot of them out there for libraries to buy and circulate to people.
Right.
They tend to be really, really small because they're short and they have few words on the page to help students. But it's more like a magazine than a book. And so public libraries, we're looking for durable stuff that lots of people can check out and use. So that's been a challenge. So we've been looking at, okay, how do we take these like magazines and beef them up to where they're sturdy that families can check them out? And how do we help families know which books to use? Because it's one thing to say, here's a children's section with hundreds of books, take whatever you want. And it's another thing for a parent to choose the book at the right level for their student. So that's something that our reading specialist helped us kind of develop. Here are some really quick tools that a parent could use to figure out the right book for their student when they're learning to read. We always say that a student should read whatever they want to read that makes them excited about reading. But if they're struggling with reading, then sometimes that can be too overwhelming. So having a book that's really at their level makes them feel really successful and feel like they can read instead of opening a book with so much and they just close it and say, I can't do it. So it's really helped us to start transitioning and for our staff to learn so that they can then help the families that come in to pick the right books for their students.
I think that makes so much sense when you talk about teaching kids in a way that they're comfortable learning how to read. If it's not something that's exciting to me, or if I'm dealing with something else like ADD or ADHD or being neurodivergent, you may not know how to reach someone with mainstream tools or traditional tactics. The C-spot run or sight words, things like that may not come as easy to someone like that. How are we helping parents as they navigate teaching young readers to embrace reading, but also to start practicing their reading when we're in such a digital age?
That's a great question. We've done some workshops for parents with our reading consultant to help them access the tools that are available at the library and to talk about what it looks like to help your student. We've also been working on our website with tools and links for parents. One of the things I love about the library, anyone in the metro has access to the Libby app, which is our e-library, and it's ebooks and audiobooks that you can put on any device. So even if you don't have a lot of time to come to a physical library, or you don't want to carry around a ton of books, that's my issue. Is I'm like, I want a book now, but I don't want to have to carry it around with me.
Absolutely.
Those books are downloadable on any of your digital devices, and so that's a really great way for parents to access books on the fly for their kids. And listening to books is actually a big part of that I've learned from our reading specialist too, is a more complicated book might be more exciting for kids, but they might struggle to read it on their own. But an audio book, they can listen to that book be read, and they hear that fluent reading, they hear the good language, and there's studies that show that the same parts of your brain light up when you listen to a book as when you read a book. So they're really getting that same exposure. And so the Libby app is a great way to access audiobooks in addition to those physical ones where you can just press the button. They can follow along with the ebook on a device and listen to it. And that's a great way for busy parents, I think, too, because reading with your kids is a great way to encourage reading, but we don't always have time. We have work, or we've got to cook dinner, or we need to do the laundry, and sitting down and spending that time is a great bonding moment.
Absolutely.
But it's not always something we have time for. So when you can play a book for someone, for your student, that's a really helpful tool for them.
I am a fan of the Libby app. I had Audible for a while, and in the space of trying to be a little more fiscally smart, I had to cut that. And when I was able to not only log into the Libby app, but also to reapply for a library card quickly, I literally was sitting on an airplane.
Yeah.
And I applied for the library card, got the email, and then logged into the app and was able to listen to a book I had been wanting to read for the longest time during my flight. And I was so impressed with it. I actually was on last night. So to hear you talk about it right now in real time, I can tell people it is very helpful. I'm one of those people that plays it in the background as I clean my house.
Yes.
I can listen to books and I'm like, and I'm actually remembering some of the things that I'm hearing versus holding the book in my hand. Although I do miss the smell of the pages, I can't lie. But I do highly recommend that to parents at home if they are interested, or to kids at home that are interested in becoming more proficient in reading. Currently, there is state legislation introducing the READ Act, and this includes professional development for teachers in the science of reading, including literacy training from programs approved by the Minnesota Department of Education. Share with me the opportunity this gives for students when they're able to encounter a teacher that is consistently updating their tools or sharpening their knives, so to speak, to teach them in ways that they need to be reached.
Yeah, there has been a lot of research for a long time about how to help kids learn to read. And when I first started being more aware of the issues with kids learning to read, and I knew that the research was out there, I'm like, why are we doing this? Like, if we know a good way to teach kids to read, why aren't we doing it? And then I learned more, and it is complicated. It's complicated to change the direction when we have certain materials in schools, and we have certain ways that teachers have been taught and ways that parents have been taught to help their kids. It's not as easy as just shifting so quickly. It takes time and money, and that's a big part of the READ Act, is making that available to everyone in our state, all the teachers, and giving them that training so that they do have those best practices, and it's not sort of a school by school day-to-day thing. It's okay, we're all gonna get on this boat together and turn the direction. So I'm excited for that, not being in schools, but I think that it will help our communities a lot to have a lot of resources all at once to make that shift, because it's complicated and it takes time to make a change, but having the resources and the backing of the law and the lawmakers, I think will help that change to happen more quickly.
We'll talk a little bit about how viewers can get involved to help push this across the legislative floor, and how they can get their state representatives to help us back this so that we can actually get it through, because we not only need the support, but we need the money to try and make this happen, like you said, on an even scale for everyone, no matter if you're in a private school, a public school, charter school, we all need these resources. Can you talk to me about the necessity around early intervention and what that looks like for kids? I know early in the show we talked about the numbers around third graders for reading level, and then we talked about the juvenile incarceration rate and the deficit there about how many people are unable to read. But before that, when we talked about reading circle, can you talk about how those tools of intervention are very important to our community at large?
Yeah, parents are their kids' first and best teachers, especially before kids start school. Their parent is the one with them at home and really instilling those best practices. 90% of brain development happens in the first 5 years of life. So
can you repeat that one more time so that people can really hear that?
Yeah, 90% of brain development happens in the first 5 years of life. So for most kids, that's before they ever even start school. We think about learning and teaching kind of happening once you start school. But really, parents are the ones for those early years that are really developing, because babies, their brains are just growing so quickly. And so reading every day, singing with your child, it helps to spread out the sounds and words and helps kids really start to develop that language. Reading and writing. Babies and toddlers, they don't really have the fine motor skills in their hands yet to actually write, but the more they practice those kinds of things, finger painting and art, finger plays, like when we do the itsy bitsy spider,
Absolutely.
it starts to build those finger skills for writing. All of that stuff is happening from the moment a baby's born. And even just talking to babies. I know that some people don't feel as comfortable talking to a baby that can't really respond, but the more we talk to young kids, the more language that they get and the easier it is for them to start reading and talking and writing. So reading by 3rd grade is super important, but it starts when a child is born.
Absolutely. I remember speaking to an educator some years ago, and she said that when we talk to children, we have to make sure that we speak proper English to them and that we're not using baby talk, because we're raising children to be adults. We're not raising them to stay children. And so to help their brain development and their speech skills, we have to start talking to them in a language that traditionally they will hear all the time as they're around. People aren't going to, Google Gaga to them at work or in school.
Right.
They're going to ask you, how old are you? What is your name? Things like that. And I thought it was very important to consider, because I think although kids are so cute, we don't start to think about the long-term development of their brain or their language skills and how that shows up. And then later on, how that affects their ability to read, or their ability to learn to read or read to learn.
Yes, exactly. It feels strange to use those kinds of words with babies, but the more exposure they get to it, then the better when they do get to school and they start hearing real words and more complicated words, because people aren't going to talk baby talk to them for their whole lives, hopefully.
Right. We talked a little bit about being in the digital age and trying to make the connection with kids. I was looking at the Anoka County Library website and looking at the Beanstack program that you guys have. And you guys are really reaching kids in a very untraditional way and giving them, I think, the screen time or tablet time that they really want, it seems like, more so.
Yeah, that's tough because some parents don't want their kids to have a lot of screen time, and that's understandable. But the Beanstack app, I think, is great because it's really motivating around reading. And that depends on how you get motivated. There's a timer. So some kids just like to see, I'm going to hit the timer, and then I know I've read, and then I can go outside and play or do whatever I want to do. You can add friends or family so you can compete if you're motivated by competition.
Absolutely.
You can see who's read the most that week and see if you can beat them. There are digital badges that you earn, so it's little encouragements. You read on the first day of summer, like, go you. You have read 10 days in a row. Little motivations like that. The biggest one that motivates me is the streak calendar.
Yes.
That's the one I like. It keeps track of if you've logged reading every day. It doesn't matter how much reading, just that you've read every single day. And it'll have a little flame, and the flame will get bigger as you read more days. And I don't like my calendar to say that I broke my streak.
Right.
Then you have to start all over again. So there's lots of different ways for kids to get motivated through that app. You can use it all year long. You can also submit book reviews, so you can share with other people what you thought about the book, and that's really motivating for some people. And I think it's motivating for kids, but people of all ages can use it. In the summer, we really beef it up, and we have extra challenges in there. So based on your age, you can join a summer reading challenge, and we have even more badges. We have weekly prize drawings.
Wow.
So it's even more motivation
Right.
to keep reading and participating in activities.
How have you seen the Anoka County Library community receive the usage of the app? Like you just talked about, it's not just for kids. Even though this is a tool that can be used to help us with this initiative about closing the crisis around literacy, but can you talk about how the community's received it?
Yeah, a lot of adults have told us when we started using it for kids for summer reading that they were really sad that they didn't get to use it too, or they were reading with their kids and they wanted to also participate. So we added adults, and now it's all ages can participate in our reading challenges, and we've seen growth every single year. We started using it during the pandemic. It was a great way to connect with people when we couldn't be in person, and we've kept using it since then, and every year we have more people join our challenges. prizes. We have more people that are like, I want the badges, I want the prizes. Prizes are a big motivation for kids.
Right.
So we, in the summer, all the metro area libraries have summer reading programs. A lot of them use Beanstack, but not all of them like we do. But they all have tickets to the Minnesota Twins, to the State Fair, and some of them have other prizes too. Like in Anoka County, we have tickets to the Bunker Beach Water Park.
Oh, wow.
So it's really motivating for kids, and they get to have fun experiences too with their families over the summer. So the response has been great, and adults told us that they wanted prizes too.
I was just about to say, now I want to apply. I'm like, I haven't been to Waveful in years. This is exciting.
Yeah. So in Anoka County, every child that registers for summer reading gets a book to keep. And adults told us that they wanted books too. So this summer, every adult will also get a book to keep. So the response has been great, and people really like it. And it's really fun for us too to connect with people that way.
Sounds wonderful. Now, I also was taking a gander at the Reading Bridge, and I know you spoke a little bit about that, the peer-to-peer tutoring, reading out loud to one another, but can you kind of talk about that? I know it was closed for winter, and now it's currently closed for winter, but is about to reopen this summer. Can you talk to people about how they can join, how it works, and some of the resources, some of the awards people are able to encounter in utilizing the Reading Bridge?
Yeah, so this is a new program that we developed with our reading consultants, but it's not new for some libraries across the country. We looked at other programs, including the Reading Together program at St. Paul Public Library has been going on longer than our program.
Okay.
So for people who live in Anoka County, registration will open on May 22nd to have your student paired with a volunteer mentor, and they will meet for 8 weeks throughout the summer, once a week at the library, and they play games and they read together, and it really creates a fun environment around reading, and kids get to pick books they like. If they're too complicated, then their mentor will read them to them, and then their mentor will help them find books at their level to read aloud to get that practice as well. Families tell us that their kids love it because it is that low pressure environment. Some kids get a lot of interventions at schools, which is great, but one mom told us, like, my son gets pulled out of class 4 days a week to get help with his reading, but he gets embarrassed because his friends get to do other things while he has to go and practice reading. But at the library, nobody knows that he's practicing reading. They don't see that happening. And our mentors love it too. We are currently recruiting for mentors. One of our mentors told me, she's like, I feel younger just participating in this program because every week I get paired up with this young student and they're so energetic and they love reading, and it makes me want to read more because I'm encouraging them to read more. That was a side effect that we didn't think was, we didn't think about that, about how it would affect the mentors. But it's been a really positive thing, and building relationships in the community is really helpful too. Some of the parents, while their kids work with their mentors, they get to know each other and they see each other every week. So it's been a really great experience for us. And the Reading Together program is also available at the St. Paul Public Library. Okay. So I know a lot of your viewers probably live closer to St. Paul than they do to us. That's another really great option.
Thank you for sharing that. You spoke about the volunteers saying that they feel younger. And we all know that during the pandemic, we were so isolated and just in our pods to ourselves. And there's been so many significant studies scientifically about intergenerational living, but also support of one another. It not only helps foster community, but it also provides a better overall quality of life for both parties. Yes. So it's nice to know that it's not just tackling an issue around a literacy crisis, but it's also improving the quality of life for both people.
Yeah, like that was not our original intention, but I just love the way that it really is a full kind of community circle of the mentors and the families and the kids, because so many people are getting things out of it, and A lot of mentors are like, I think I'm getting more out of this than the student is. So that's been a really exciting thing to see.
Erin, share with me, what is your hope for this work?
Our vision at Anoka County Library is a community where creativity and opportunity thrive. And that's my hope, is not just with literacy, but all the access that libraries give to people, is not that we're just making it through day to day, but really thriving and loving life and enjoying life. Libraries have a ton of educational opportunities, but also entertainment. That kind of community bonding and having fun is important too. And so really having a place where everyone has access to what they need and information that they need, but also the entertainment options, that's what my hope is that we really have a community that thrives.
Absolutely. Now I'm going to have you, this is my last question, or should I say my last request. I would love for you to look in that camera and provide our viewers either with a call to action or provide them with an upcoming event so that we can come and support the work that's going on at the Anoka County Libraries or at the libraries that are closer to us in our areas.
Yeah, there's so many, but I would say libraries are for everyone, and that's the first step, is getting a library card so that you have access to all the things we talked about today and so much more. So a lot of times you can sign up for that online, or visit your library and we'll help you get signed up for a card. And then summer reading is coming up for everyone. A big time over summer for youth is that summer slide where they lose a lot of what they've learned in school. And so summer reading helps kids stay reading and learning over summer. So once you get that library card, if you have kids in your life, then the next step is get them involved in summer reading at the library.
Absolutely wonderful. Thank you so much. Can you provide some information so that we can stay connected? A web address, social media handles, so we can know about the upcoming events that are going on at the library?
Yeah, AnokaCountyLibrary.org is the web address for Anoka County Library, and we have all kinds of resources that are available even if you don't live in Anoka County. Luckily, if you live in the metro, you can use your library card at any metro library. So it's a good place to start. We've got free science classes, art classes, book clubs for all kinds of ages. So that's a great place to start. But also, if you search Metropolitan Library Service Association, MELSA, you can find the link to the library closest to you. So if Anoka County is a little far for where you live, then you can find the library that's closest to you through that website.
Unfortunately, that is all the time that we have for today's episode of Community Connections. A special thank you to Erin Straszewski and her team at the Anoka County Libraries. A special announcement regarding Literacy Day. April 18, 2023 at 10 a.m., the Minnesota State Capitol will be having a family-friendly event for adults, students, educators, and professionals from around the state. This gathering at the Capitol is to raise awareness for the science of reading and inform policymakers about the best practices for struggling readers and all students learning to read. Please make sure that you are reaching out to your civic leaders, your state representatives, to pass legislation on the READ Act. We all can benefit from this information, and we want to make sure that we are doing our best to support the readers in our community. As always, I am Anna Orr, and this has been another episode of Community Connections.